Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Asher Agency, a full-service marketing agency with offices in Indiana, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. For nearly 50 years, Asher has helped our clients tell their stories, reach customers and prospects, and stand out from the crowd. To learn more about how we can help your company, visit asheragency.com or contact us at hello@asheragency.com. My guest is TJ Unger. TJ, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for doing this during a busy time. You've been traveling a bit, correct?
I have been traveling a bit. There's no shortage of things going on in our world.
Yeah.
But no, this is awesome. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come in here and,
Well, I really appreciate you doing this. You know, you and I hit it off thanks to Clay Dimmitt, who introduced us back. Was that like December?
I think so. It was just at the end of last year. Kicking around some ideas, strategies, and made the intro.
Yep. And I've also had the opportunity to meet your lovely wife, who was in a class I just taught.
That's right.
So what's the real story on how she feels about that class? Is she like, this was a waste of my time?
No, so from my perspective, I'm hearing it not even secondhand. I'm hearing it from the room over. So it's either cooking dinner while she's, so I've heard some great stories. David sharing like that he's a cat guy and a cheese nip guy and like a handful of things that I'm chuckling from the room over. But from a real application standpoint, it's been great for her.
Well, good.
I think learning some of the basics from peers and how they're leveraging what you guys are doing, I think is great.
Well, awesome. And David Good, if you pop into, so he's the office as you're exiting Asher, right on the left-hand side as you're leaving Asher. That used to be my office. It's David's office, and there's bookshelves. Literally, the bookshelves are full of Cheez-It boxes. This is no lie. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But I don't know if they're empty. I don't know if they're full. But it's
I swear. I knew that when we first met David, I knew that I really liked him.
Yeah.
But when I was overhearing your guys' podcast, and he's like, yep, I'm a cat guy, and I'm a Cheez-It guy. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
I know this. And now this is some leverage for him and I to connect a little bit
now
more.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, we're not here to talk about Liz or David or Cheez-Its. We're here to talk about you. So let's talk about your career path. And what I'd like you to do is start whatever the beginning is for you. When did you start thinking about career stuff? What did that look like? Did you follow a straight path from that, or did it detour? Because you grew up in Wabash, correct?
I did, yeah.
All right, so tell me a little bit about what young TJ Unger is thinking about with careers and where you go from there.
So the question of when did I start thinking about my career, I still think about my career today and try to figure out which path I want to take, honestly. But I'm one of those people that I've got a lot of different interests. And growing up, outdoors was an outlet for me. But so were the arts, So when I came to...
That's an unusual combination.
It's super unusual. The technical sciences, but also the creative element of it. And so I started a path of exploring, not even necessarily career options, but just learning opportunities. I actually went to the University of St. Francis here in Fort Wayne and started in fine commercial art and transitioned. I'm a people person also.
Sure.
And transitioned over into secondary education. I thought maybe I wanted to be a teacher and an art teacher maybe. I loved my high school art teachers and then continued to explore those things and checking things off the list that I didn't want to do. And so took a hard turn from education back over into the sciences. And really found a love for earth sciences and some chemistries and some neat things like that. I was introduced to an individual, Joe Steensma, through the university, and they had an opportunity for an internship at a company called the Industrial Solutions Group. Tiny little, family-owned business here in Fort Wayne, out of Joe's basement. And because I really, to your question, when did I think about careers? I still hadn't at this point. I'm learning and just, navigating as a young guy does. And my professor, Dr. Weedman, suggested that I talk to Joe. And Joe really took me under his wing. Now, my colleague today, Jason Morrison, hired me under his tutelage, under the environmental department of our business as ISG. And I had some really great mentors and technical leaders to carry me down a different path. Now, through that, I applied my science interests in the industry that we were in, or that we're still in today. But was able to leverage some of those creative interests, to my benefit as well. So it's maybe not been a traditional path, but I don't really even know that there is a traditional path anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the majority, I would say 99% of the people who have been on the podcast took either a really sharp turn or multiple sharp turns over the course of their career. Yeah. And I think, honestly, it's one of the reasons why I like having that conversation, because younger people, I think they look at someone like you and they say, oh, he must have always known that he wanted to do it. My son right now is 23 and he's going through a little bit of, I've finished college. Is this going to be the rest of my life? And I've told him, I said, everyone I know who's successful will ask himself that question at least once a week, sometimes
that
once
is exactly
a day.
right.
So I think it's good. I think it's good to hear that it's not always a straight path.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't mind my asking, you also have had kind of a second career in the outdoors. Can you talk about how that manifested itself?
Yeah. So with my professional interests and kind of the path that I took over there, I still had these outlets in my personal life, to just recharge and kind of refuel that I still think is hugely important to everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
But I was, kind of raised up that I, had an outlet of the outdoors for when I did get super anxious or stressed or whatever the case. So, I took a path alongside my professional career way that I was introduced into some professionals or with some professionals in the outdoor industry, kind of outdoor and recreational industry, and met there again some really cool, influential leaders that kind of took me under their wing and just taught me the ins and outs of that industry. And then, like I said, just kind of took a parallel pathway of learning some marketing and, social media and podcasting and some of these other things in maybe a less traditional industry. But it was a really cool outlet for me. So worked with a number of very large brands in the outdoor space. And I would consider it more so a passion project than a career. But a super cool learning opportunity. And again, just an outlet for me to play around with and practice with less, it sounds funny, but less implications or gravity than my career pathway.
Well, but it complements nicely what you do every day too. It's not a complete 180 from what you're doing.
That's right.
I mean, it's all about, the environment and the outdoor space, which I think is great. When you have something that can be an outlet, it can be a stress reducer, but it speaks to some of the stuff you do every day. That's a great combination.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about this entity called 7Gen. How do you explain it to people? What does the organization strive to do, and what's your role in all that?
So we started 7Gen in September 2013. Me and a couple of partners. It was actually the same founding members of ISG. A couple of predecessors.
So you went right from ISG to 7Gen.
We did not. To your point, we've gone through a number of twists and turns. I was a part of some national M&As. So we started out as a family-owned practice. We brokered a relationship with a very large occupational healthcare company called Concentra as kind of a vendor relationship. It went very well. And in 2007, Concentra purchased our organization, of ISG. We became kind of an external consulting arm for Concentra. So while they're focusing on employees returning to work and injury care and treatment occupationally related, our practice at the time was we were focused on preventing those things and keeping the employees healthy and safe while they're at work. So it was a great partnership that then became, the acquisition. I was tasked with kind of working within Concentra's markets. They were a huge company. They have over 300 medical clinics throughout the U.S. today. And I would go around and kind of train their salespeople. I was the only salesperson for ISG. And so for us to kind of expand our footprint, we leveraged those salespeople in Concentra to share the good word, to get our brand out there and to, inform people of our services. And that went quite well. And then in 2012-ish, maybe 11, somewhere around there, Humana, the insurance company, purchased Concentra. Brilliant business model. And I'm not sharing anything that's not public.
Sure.
But brilliant business model. Humana, they insure you and I if we're sick or whatever. And it just so happened that some outrageous figure, some super high percentage of Humana's insured were within less than a 30-minute drive of a Concentra clinic. Outstanding numbers. So from an insurance standpoint, they're paying for our coverage, but it's almost just a transition of pockets. We kind of saw some writing on the wall where Humana was divesting of non-core primary care services, and the services that we provide at the time were non-core to primary care. So it afforded me and the partners an opportunity to buy our practice. So today, 7gen, we are a traditional business-to-business service provider. We've got exceptional consultants that are certified in their field of industrial hygiene, occupational safety, health, and environmental, or environmental consulting or compliance. So the services that our group provides, while they do check a box for compliance, for federal regulations, those are the drivers of these types of expenditures. Our services are a little more protective in the fact that we understand the value that our work brings to a business. So by keeping people safe and healthy, they are at work. They want to come to work more so than an unhealthy, unsafe place. And so it, returns for recruitment and retention, and it just makes for a better business. It also maximizes productivity. So understanding these few things, but then, what we were talking about before, the parallels between my interests and my passions are also direct in line with what we do as a business in keeping the environment clean, protecting our environment. So our consultants are also charged with evaluating operational impacts and providing recommendations to minimize those impacts and keep our communities clean and our people protected. So really cool, meaningful work that we do. And it's been a lot of fun, challenging in a good way. But to build a business from, essentially scratch as 7gen, coming from a company like Concentra and Humana that have very strong brand recognition, we learned a lot through those years and tried to apply that as 7gen. So we're now going into our 10th year come September, of course, and a lot to celebrate. We're a super cool company. We're a young group, or relatively speaking, we're a young group, and we have a lot of fun doing what we do. So
So explain the origin of the name, because it speaks to the points you just made. I think it's a cool story.
It is. So when you start a business from a marketing standpoint, the implications of brand, at least from my perspective, seems tremendous. You're going to come up with a brand that lives as long as this practice does. And what are people going to say about it? How are they going to interact with it and all these things? And so going into it, me and a couple of partners started throwing, names in the hat. But where we kind of took a pivot was thinking less about names and brands and how the market will receive that, and more so on a concept. And there's a proverb in our world of occupational health and environmental sustainability of, in every deliberation, we must consider the impact of our decisions on the next 7 generations. It's just a really cool, really cool phrase and, meaningful to the work that we do.
Well, a lot of people could benefit from thinking that way.
A lot of people, even if they thought, a half a generation ahead,
maybe a week ahead.
7's pretty aggressive for a lot of people. But conceptually, thinking, more broadly and what we do just as individuals as we go through our days, but then on a broader scale at work and in our places of business, and how that affects our communities, beyond the economics of it all, is pretty powerful. So we came up with, of course, the name 7gen, which is fun. It's got a story and it means something to our team. I, meet with a lot of people all over the country, and this is a common question. But it seems like people want to get get something back that's like, we pulled it out of a hat, or but no, it's cool. And the one thing that has come from this is, and this isn't being braggadocious at all, it's just a testament to kind of the vision of our business, but we work in a highly technical field. We're not a commodity, we're a service.
Yeah.
And so to have something tangible in this industry is really difficult.
Yeah.
But we've built a brand that has some cool recognition and something people can really buy into.
Yeah.
But our clients ask for swag and they're asking for, whatever, because they want to be a part of it. Not necessarily our brand, but kind of the mission, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's rare that, we're in the business, Asher, of sometimes naming companies. And it happens, but it's rare where you get a name that kind of speaks to the mission of the organization without you having to say much else.
Right.
So kudos, that's great.
Thank you.
You should be in our business. So let's talk a little bit about some of the work that you do without revealing too many trade secrets to give people a sense of some of the things that you're working on. What are some of the projects, some of the initiatives that you're part of right now that are important to you at the top of your to-do list, maybe keeping you up at night?
Yeah, it's a cool question. So over the last probably 24 months, me and my fellow partners, we've been working to kind of restructure our company. So altogether, the five of us have been working, with one another for more than 20 years. Yeah. We've been through altogether 4 different businesses. And today, going into 10 years of business, you start to, I don't want to say complacent, but you start just kind of doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. You lose your objectivity a little bit.
We do, absolutely. Yeah. So we hit a reset button maybe 24 months ago and kind of looked internally at our operational processes and some of the challenges that companies face every day. Yeah. And we started working with a consultant out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and she's been challenging us in how we identify and address opportunities and issues. It's been really cool for the 5 of us members. Yeah. Considering that we've worked together for 20 years or more, you know a lot about each other, but you also start to build, I don't want to say barriers, but kind of barriers. You know where each other's buttons are. Yeah. And so through that process, we were able to kind of break those down. And when I say hit that reset button, I mean start over in learning about each other. Yeah. We're different today than what we were when we started this business in 2001. Sure. Very different. And so learning how each other operates today and some of our, visions and goals individually and getting back on track, that's been the biggest change for 7Gen over the last 2 years. Yeah. With that, we've been able to pivot from, here's some of our operational challenges that we need to overcome. Some of these will just be the reality of business. Yeah, sure. But coming up with strategies to overcome those, which has now afforded me from my side of the house, which is business development, an opportunity to look at how we really brand and speak to 7Gen. Yep. So that really started our relationship here. Yep. So you'd mentioned Clay. Clay joined our team, and he is exceptional. He is one of those individuals that kind of embodies our culture at 7Gen. And so we're leveraging that model or mentality of we need more like-minded professionals to elevate the business.
Especially as competitive as it is for talent.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So beyond those challenges, focusing on what we can do that's, fun and strategic and well aligned with, where we want to head over the next 10 years and 15 years and map these goals out and work backwards to figure out what it's going to take to get there. Yep. It's become, super exciting again. Yeah. Not that it ever lost its, luster, but, it becomes a job at some point.
Well, yeah, and I've been at Asher now for 18 and a half years, and it's been fun the whole way. But, when Kara Kelly bought the business in July, Kara, our now CEO, and Megan Bennett, our CFO, it was just new energy, right? There was nothing broken before, but you don't want to get complacent. If you're not moving forward, you're going backward, right? Yeah. So I get it, and that fresh perspective and a fresh look at everything. The world moves so fast that, it's really easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, especially when you're busy. Sometimes you need to kind of hit the brakes and say, all right, let's make sure that we're bringing our best effort to this and not missing anything. So I think that's great. Talk a little bit about some, again, without revealing too much, some of the types of organizations you work with. What challenges do they tend to throw at you?
Yeah, so we are tasked with, working directly with primarily industrial manufacturing. And I say tasked with that because it's not traditional business. We're not going in and selling a product that you can just communicate a return on investment or compare, competitors super easy. We're talking about a service, and some of our differentiators are because of our people. So primarily we're working in industrial manufacturing, automotive, healthcare and medical device manufacturing, and food manufacturing, food and kind of food-based products. I don't know if you've seen the shows, maybe you have, but How It's Made. It used to be a program on Discovery or whatever. That's very similar to the job that we have. It's evaluating how these materials are made. So taking a raw material, manipulating it, and turning it into something else. There's a great deal of risk associated with that. From our people risk to environmental risk. So our team of consultants, we go into these facilities all across the country and evaluate how it's made, their process, and identify their areas of risk. Risk for compliance, of course, OSHA and EPA type regulations. But that's the fundamental of it. But really, their risk in business. If they don't do these things, what can it cause? Or if they do, what's the return? So evaluating those risks and providing solutions in partnership with the company to minimize, safety risks and health risks. And,
As that infers, you've got some really smart people on your team.
Very.
Talk a little bit about your team. What are some of the skills they bring to the table, and what are some of the ways in which you find them in a competitive environment?
It is. I mean, everyone knows the labor market it's tough right now.
Yeah, and if I can interject for a second, one thing, I don't want to talk about Clay too much or he'll get a really big head, but no, Clay's a great guy. So, one of the things that impressed me before you and I met was how excited he was about his job, right? He had changed jobs a couple times, and he called me, and I don't know Clay especially well, but I met him through something we were doing with Indiana Tech, and he was just over the moon about his job, which is always cool to hear. So, I'm going to throw another question at you. Tell me about the people who work for 7Gen. How do you find them, and what do you think it is about your culture that makes that happen?
Yeah, great question. So our people, the work that we do is heavily based on the sciences of the industry. So think toxicology and heavy chemistry and, kind of those areas of sciences. And we're pulling talent from some of the best universities across the country. We got great relationships with University of Michigan and UIC and Illinois and Cincinnati and Ohio and, all over the place. But we're able to leverage those groups to understand how they're tailoring their curriculum to apply to our field of study in our industry. So some of our professionals today are well embedded into some of these educational programs to bring an awareness to the work that we do. So, if these students are studying something like industrial hygiene, off the surface, it seems like a very laboratory setting and, evaluating chemicals and all of that sort of thing. But in reality, our industrial hygiene team, while they are highly technical and highly trained in these sciences, they're people, that just care about other people. It's just their focus is based on, those heavy sciences. And so we're training our talent individually on a process of delivering a service. But their background is coming from, a high degree education. So, masters of public health and a variety of other sciences. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is pull in those highly educated, trained professionals alongside with kind of the softer skills. So you point out Clay, he has, he kind of embodies that people person mentality. Super easy to connect with right off the surface. Very likable guy. And in our world and in the services that we provide, we're talking to everyone from, that C-suite to talk about the benefit that this brings to their business, all the way down to, the people that are, wrenching and getting dirty and doing all that.
And they can be an appropriately skeptical group.
That's
it's
right.
Like, are you going to come in and make my job harder? Are you going to come in and make my job disappear? Right? So I'm sure it's a tough crowd.
It is a very tough crowd. We're talking about unionized, places that, they're tough times to kind of navigate, but having those, kind of personality traits and being able to be flexible enough to carry those conversations at any degree of the organization allows our team to be really successful.
Yeah.
Now, with that, I think one of the things that we do differently now, I don't know, you probably get weird looks when I say this, but I don't keep a pulse on what our competitors do. I really don't.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of what we do and focus on what we do well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was kind of a foundation of our business was to tailor young professionals and help develop those young professionals through their career. And they stick around. I'm a case study in that. I was an intern. So while I was at St. Francis, the Industrial Solutions Group hired me as an intern, where I grew up through the ranks and was able to have mentors that are leaders in our profession. Joe Steensmill, who I mentioned, he is now at Washington University in St. Louis, one of the country's most renowned universities for public health and these sciences, and a research institute. I was able to learn under his direction, which is amazing. We carry that same model forward today, where we're bringing in, right now we've got 3 interns within 7Gen. We're still a small business, so 3 interns is a lot. And kind of train them through the ranks on the technical stuff. And then help them to get their certifications. So I don't know how many we've had. This is probably a compelling number, but to show over the years how many certified professionals we've helped foster along. But it's not a sense of, we're trying to keep these people. I don't want to say that we are like a career destination where we want people to come and stay for their entire lives, but more so explore this industry because it's not super well known. And help these professionals learn what they do love. Maybe get certified and continue their career forward. So we've got professionals today that we still stay in touch with that started out as interns or, straight out of college that are now sitting at, corporate Boeing or, companies all across the country that value, our process and what we did with our professionals or continue to do with those guys.
And if this next question steals your thunder about something you want to talk about later, either later in the podcast or later in life, we can edit it out. But, when we talk about smart people, you had like a Fulbright recipient on your team.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that.
So Tiara, she came to us through University of Michigan. One of the programs that our team has done, one of our technical teams, industrial hygiene, we've partnered with the University of Michigan to offer them almost job shadowing opportunities. So some project-based or experiential learning. We do a great deal of work in Michigan. So when our consultants are near Ann Arbor, we reach out to that group and say, hey, we've got some pretty cool project-based learning that we could offer your students. And that year we had Tiara. Tiara joined our group and she showed up and volunteered for every opportunity that we had. And we quickly learned that she was different in a good way. So started that relationship with her. She was a Fulbright Scholar. She came from Indonesia and was extended a pretty hefty scholarship to go to University of Michigan in their public health and industrial hygiene program. She chose out of all the opportunities that she had across the country to join 7Gen. We were able to give her a learning opportunity at a much shorter timeline. So she was on a visa or a program that she was only in the United States 1 full year after graduating from that program. Really neat, really cool initiative that they have, but essentially their government, Indonesia, partnered with the United States government, and through their learning, through the students' learning of things like industrial hygiene, they're able to take this knowledge and these skills and return back to their government and back to their country and apply that knowledge there locally. So, for instance, Indonesia doesn't have a well-established industrial hygiene scene like what we do here. And they don't have the same federal drivers and that sort of thing. But Tiara was able to join our company, and based on her, she's highly educated and a very intelligent person. Jump right into our team, hit the ground running. And I don't know how many projects she was a part of, but she was critical to our success over the last 12 months and made a huge impact. She's a difference maker. Unfortunately, her time with us came to an end last month. But we stay in touch. She just moved back home or is in that process right now. But our goal is to stay in touch with her there. We've leveraged our global network to make some introductions back at home for her. So we are very proud. It's less of a testament to maybe what 7Gen does and more so a testament of the program, but also Tiara. Tiara's eagerness and drive to learn and experience. She just has that personality where, she may be on a project in Boston or wherever the case is, but any opportunities that she had to experience, she soaked it up.
Well, and some of that, is obviously a testament to the rest of your team, because if you put someone in that spot, their ability to thrive and really capitalize on that motor they have is contingent on the people around them.
Absolutely.
So, while we're speaking of one example, I'm sure it's reflective of all the people you have. So that's great.
It is. The individual that led Tiara, his name's Zach Pasquinelli. He graduated out of Purdue's industrial hygiene program. We met Zach at a global conference, and he had the same type of eagerness to learn and personality traits. Zach leads our industrial hygiene program today. He's our director. So really cool to see him develop through the ranks as well, and now elevate that industrial hygiene program to entirely new heights, things that we probably didn't even consider 10 years ago. But Zach has a real natural or innate ability to connect with people and be very real about it, and honest and sincere. And so I think Tiara and Zach kind of gravitated to one another to just be able to excel. Super cool.
That's awesome. Makes your job a little easier.
The people that I'm surrounded by are exceptional. They are. It's my favorite part of what I do. And to be able to come to work and get their influence on me and just kind of, gives us energy to keep going and excitement and ideas. And it's cool. It's really neat.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to pivot to some more quick hit questions. Cool. You and I could talk all day. And these are designed to be short questions and short answers, but they don't have to be. Okay. You can go anywhere you want with them. Let's talk about career success. You've obviously helped build a successful business. You've surrounded yourself with good people. But what would you say is the one thing you've learned about having a fulfilling, successful career that you most want to share, the secret to your success, if you will?
There's a couple of things. Number one, my mentors were really influential. I mentioned a couple of them, but just having somebody to be open to other ideas and to be able to share and not really care, what they look like or what it sounds like, and just kind of take risks of being uncomfortable. I was able to learn from these guys, and it seemed like at the time they were giants in this space. But they're taking me, who I was clueless on anything, under their wing, pushing me out there and say, try it. An example that I had with Joe when we were first, a part of Concentra, we were still proving ourselves. Joe gave me an opportunity to speak to all of the medical directors within the company. I don't know how many hundred were in there, but we're talking about highly educated, very smart individuals that have done this for a lot longer than I have.
Probably really good BS meters too.
That's exactly right. And the opportunity was for me to present to that group. I failed miserably. I bombed that presentation. Joe didn't say anything disparaging. He was nothing but supportive in the fact that I did it. I stood in front of that group. I tried something new. I felt like I was 14 years old. But just pushing me out there and knowing that if it sucks, doesn't matter. People don't remember that. I remember it, but that group of people, they don't remember any of those things. And just a willingness to try it, a willingness to maybe fall down and get back up and try it again. That was really cool. It showed me that I had a bigger maybe space to and room to kind of wiggle around.
Yeah, it's nice to have that safety net. One of the things the two brothers who founded Asher, I felt like there were mistakes that I could make once that at other places they might be terminal, but they weren't going to be terminal. There were mistakes I could make that would be.
Oh, for sure.
And if I kept making the same mistake, probably
that's
would be. They were a forgiving sort. But that's how you learn, right? And that's trying stuff. The experiential part is the only way you learn. So when you have leaders and mentors who are willing to give you that opportunity, even if it's not going to be as good as they could do it, and maybe it's something you're going to have to fail before you succeed, I think that's a real gift when people do that.
It is awesome. It's a great way to learn and practice and all of those things. So that was probably earlier in my career where I was still kind of learning from those guys. But I'll say something really obvious. Just approaching it as we're all people. We're all struggling in different ways, and we're all succeeding in different ways. But at the end of the day, we're human. We're people. And being able to go into this and not put somebody else on a pedestal or put yourself lower on a pedestal or whatever the case. We're just human beings, and we're just talking, and we're connecting, and I may have a solution for you, and likewise, if you have something for me, I'm open to it.
Yeah.
And learning from each other and collaborating and just a willingness to be honest and kind of transparent in this stuff, it goes a long, long ways.
Yeah.
And the people that don't accept that, it's fine. I don't need to spend time with these, those individuals.
Oh, sure. But, well, and it's one of those things that it might sound obvious, but I don't think it's applied as often as it should.
It's not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just kind of summarize that by approaching people as just an equal and understanding that we're all going through something and that we should all try to work together. Yeah. And, it's cool. It's meaningful work that way.
Well, and something you said in that I think is important for people to hear, and I don't say this lightly because I've been really fortunate in my career, and I suspect you have been too, but there's plenty of opportunity out there. When people say no, it's kind of like, great, you just helped me learn where I don't need to spend my time.
Right.
And I can move over here. And, if you're confident that, and for me, and I suspect this is true of you, when I'm talking to someone about doing business with Asher, it's not even self-confidence. It's like, I work with really smart people, and you would benefit from working with them. Yeah. If you don't want to, that's okay. Yeah. But they're really good.
They're really good.
And, and I said this about Jenna, one of my coworkers today, to a friend I was having lunch with. I said, anything I do that's good is because of Jenna.
Yes.
Anything I do that sucks is because of me. But, when you work with a team of people that give you that grace, it's you're not really selling, you're just telling a story.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what they do.
Yes.
Here's why they're good.
Yeah.
And if you want some of that, great. If you don't, that's okay too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun I'm in sales and business development, marketing, but when I'm surrounded by people who care and who are really great at their work, it makes my job so easy. I'm just bragging about the people that I get to work with every day.
But I think it's where you come back to the culture piece too, because, here, and I suspect there's a lot of parallels with 7Gen, is we really don't tolerate people who, when the phone rings, they run away. It's kind of like everybody's in the sales business, everybody's in the business development business, everybody's absolutely in the service business. Yeah. And when you find that, it's like, I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Because that's not, unfortunately, the way the world is as a whole.
Yeah.
But organizations can build that. It takes time, it takes effort, but that's where you want to be. So
totally agree.
Yeah. I think I spent more time answering the question I asked you than you spent answering the question.
Right. We're just talking, we're just a couple of people.
All right. Next quick hit question.
Quick hit.
So for those listening, that was air quotes. Okay, second quick hit question. This could be about your industry. It could be about 7Gen. It could be about the work you do. What is a myth or misconception you want to clear up, or something that isn't as well appreciated as it should be, that should be amplified?
Oh, gosh, Anthony, that's a hard question. I don't even know. Myths within our industry. We, while our consultants are helping companies to maintain compliance, so 7Gen, it is about compliance.
Yeah,
there is that factor. But when I think the idea, or people just have it kind of in there, that OSHA and EPA, they are enforcement. They're the bad guys.
Yeah.
They're here, to get us in trouble.
They're going to make our life different.
Right. Yeah. And they want to squash business and whatever. That's absolutely not the case. The data that businesses supply to the federal government, like OSHA and EPA, is genuinely to track our input or our impact. So understanding how and why pollution exists and where these hot areas are that are creating pollution, and trying to capture that better. And maybe what are the trends in, the occupational world that are resulting in, the greatest degree of injuries and illnesses, all of that's reported to the federal government. It's not so, they can come back and give you fines and shut your business down.
Yeah.
It's legitimately so that we as an industry can find solutions and maybe challenge the technology to come up with better ways to measure and mitigate those risks so that we can all across our country maintain better places of employment. We can have cleaner communities and cleaner, parks, and people are generally more happy and fulfilled in those areas. But we absolutely are not the enforcement people. We're not there to say what you're doing wrong and, shame on you, this or that. It's really a collaborative effort between businesses, consultants like us, and the federal government. Now, it does create some challenges. It absolutely does. The clients that we work with, they're EH&S something, managers and directors and whatever. The list of responsibilities in each of those buckets, environmental, health, and safety, are humongous. There will be teams of EH&S professionals for some organizations. But, you have one area that has a gap, and it can be, I don't want to say crippling, but it makes, operating as an EH&S professional really difficult. Yeah. So having solutions and partners and really team members and fellow colleagues that help to elevate and bring programs together. Companies talk about culture-based safety and behavioral-based safety. It's really utilizing your team to understand opportunities. When businesses have individuals that are making decisions behind desks and a computer and not soliciting that feedback, it really is hard to carry that stuff together. Yeah. This was a quick hit answer.
Well, I think
so. Maybe I just say yes.
I think it's important for people to hear that, though, because OSHA is a 4-letter word, right? To a lot of people, it's a dirty word. But when you look at the occupational standards in this country compared to the rest of the world, they're pretty good.
They're pretty good.
And the reason for that is there's standards.
That's right.
So, I think that's great. I think that's something you don't hear often enough. And it's not, there's waste and there's problems in every industry. But it's actually should be good news for people that these organizations are looking out for us. Right. They really are collectively. And if they make some mistakes along the way, that's just being human.
Yeah. Anthony, I'm going to interject real quick.
Go for it.
I have to comment or at least remark on the fact that what we're talking about right now, which is really awesome. I have family members still to this day that have no idea what we do. We are 7Gen. We're an environmental health and safety consulting company, but I think it's awesome that you at least have an understanding of the work that we do in the field and the benefit that it brings to the companies that we partner with. I think it's great.
Well, there's 3 things I'm going to say about that. Number 1 is I'm going to stop talking before I disabuse you of that notion. Number 2, you guys have been great job of getting Asher up to speed on the little bit of work we've done together. And number 3 is my secret weapon. My wife works for Michelin in learning and development.
No way.
So yeah.
Awesome.
So she is. It's no surprise to anyone listening to this that she's the brains of the operation. Yeah. But there's days when we work from home together, and she's on the second floor talking about real problems and all these occupational issues, and I'm downstairs, and every now and then she'll yell at me, "I would have gotten fired for that."
Oh my gosh! So it's great to have that counterpart in the home.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talk about Liz and some of the things that she's benefited from your courses. Seriously, I joked that talking about David and his influence, but in reality, when she gets off of those meetings, we're cooking dinner or whatever the case is. Yeah. But just talking through some of the cool, strategies or something that she's not thought about. Yeah. Just comes up in some of that conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool to have that, in the home.
Look at us. We just gave shout outs to our spouses.
Thanks, Liz.
Yeah. we should stop talking about that
before
we screw it up. All right. One last quick hit question. What's something that informs your work? For some people, it's a book. For some people, it's an app. For some people, it's something intangible that is important to you that you think deserves a shout out.
Well, there's a couple of tools that I use.
Yeah.
So first I'll focus on the tool. So with COVID, everybody took a massive shift.
Yep.
A big part of what I do and my team does on the business development side and kind of strategic account management is ongoing engagement with our clients. Our clients are national in scope, so they may be all over the country.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to bump into them at the grocery store.
Probably not. It doesn't happen very often. And so the tools that came from COVID, we all reverted back to home offices and that sort of thing. But the tools that came from COVID that people thought were probably pretty temporary that have stuck around have been hugely valuable to me and our team. So virtuals, we host virtual meetings so frequently, and it was something that just wasn't done. Yeah. Because we're in a people business, it's a service business, and to see the operations and to connect with other people. So we've fully adopted those virtual discovery meetings and leaning on Teams and kind of the Microsoft platform to host those meetings. I've had virtual meetings in places like Dallas, Texas, where individuals carry around their tablet and do a walkthrough of their operations and show me some of their high-risk areas that we would focus our work on, which that would have never happened, in 2017, 18, those areas. So some of those technologies have afforded us an opportunity to have a greater influence on a national market and our national scale and be able to provide something a little more real time, and way more feasibly than jumping on an airplane. Yeah, so way even more, our impact.
Way more efficient, and it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. If you're good, you can do that work from anywhere. That's great.
Yeah. All right. So second to that is some engagement with other people in, people industries. I have a friend, Harrison Tash. Harrison used to be in industry, and he kind of took a pivot into kind of professional consulting. Yeah. Harrison and I had lunch. This was months ago. It was cold outside. Harrison and I had lunch, and I was talking about some of the challenges that I face with maybe connecting with consultants or just other people in general. And he challenged the way that maybe I think about the ability to connect with colleagues. Historically, in professional, office setting, I felt like boundaries were pretty stern, and you just talk about work, and that's kind of it, and everybody goes around, along their way, and not being too intrusive. But through Harrison's work, he had suggested that, take a deeper dive and really connect with people. It sounds super obvious. Yeah. And I think at one time I did that very well, but just got away from it.
Yeah, sure.
So kind of reinvigorating that or kind of sparking that again has helped me dig a little deeper and then start to refocus on improving myself. So reading books, there's a ton that I've read, but trying to apply that in our industry, I can't remember some of the titles, but some really cool stuff that you don't have to spit out verbatim, but just taking concepts and trying to apply to a different industry, how I've received it.
Yeah, well, and it's another case where you get so caught up in the day-to-day that you can miss the important stuff, just building relationships. And I'm guilty of that myself. I'm talking to people about projects, but I'm not talking to them about what's important to them. Right. So, if you're missing that, it's a pretty big miss. Yeah. I have some work to do, I guess. I just, the more you're talking, I'm like, boy, I've better circulate around the building and say hello to some people. Yes. But that's why we do this, to learn, right? Yeah. Well, TJ, this has been great. Thank you so much for doing it. I appreciate it, especially during a busy time.
That went quick.
Yeah, it does. It always does when we chat.
It does. I feel like we could carry this on literally for hours.
We could, and sometime we will do that. Okay. But not to tax these
not
people
at the not at the expense of the people listening.
Our tens of listeners. Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
Anthony, this is cool. I appreciate you having me in.
And thanks to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.